What is up, heroes? This is Midnight Zero, and welcome to the finals. This is the team builder for the finals. I hope you guys are pumped. I am so excited. I'm actually super nervous. I don't ever talk about it that much. I always mention that I'm nervous, that I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen, but I really get nervous, like 2 to 3 hours before the match. Sometimes even if I just think about it, if it's like a day or two ahead of time, I'll get all tense. My heart rate will go up. I'll get sweaty. I won't be able to focus on anything. I'll need to walk around and pace and everything. I get super nervous for these battles. It's actually really intense, and the finals is certainly no exception. If anything, it's the peak of it all. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do well, to play well, obviously to compete well, and in doing so, that is having fun. So I don't want you to make it sound like I'm torturing myself or anything like that. But also, when you do win a lot, you get a lot more pressure from everyone else, and that's something that's not talked about a lot. And I don't want to complain or something like that, because I have been winning, and I won the first season I was a part of in the co-op league, and so a lot of people are expecting me to win. A lot of people are rooting against me, which is something I'm totally used to at this point. But it does add an extra level of pressure, and sometimes it's fun to be the underdog, to try to upset people, and I've never really been that, except for like the first 4 or 5 games I joined this league for, or the TGFA really back in the day. So there's a lot of pressure. Again, I deal with pressure okay, and I've spent over a minute and a half now talking about nerves and pressure and not the team itself. I should hop into that. We're playing Sam, coach of the Northants Ninetales, and he's got an incredible team. His first mon is actually an incredible mega, in my opinion, one of the best in the league format, though not one that really fits my playstyle, which is why I haven't ever really gone for it. But that would be Charizard X. Mega Charizard X hits so hard with that ability Dragon Dance, or with the ability Tough Claws and access to Dragon Dance. It can hit super hard. Tough Claws, boosted Outrageous Dragon Claws, Flare Blitz, hits like an absolute truck. And this thing is scary. It can run a special set. It can run a mixed set. It can run a defensive Will-O-Wisp Roost set. It has recovery. Obviously hindered by rocks, but man, this thing is scary if it just gets one Dragon Dance. The next mon. Oh boy, the next mon. The next mon is Ash Greninja. I don't have a little gif of Ash Greninja, so we're showing regular Greninja, but we got Ash Greninja's stats. Look at those stats. So blindingly fast. Such ridiculous attack and special attack. This thing is a monster. It gets access to stab priority that is practically technician boosted because it's guaranteed 3 hits and it's base 20 power. It gets access to Hydro Pump, Dark Pulse, U-Turn for momentum. It has an incredible move pool if it's not Battle Bond. Access to Gunk Shot to counter fairies, which are typically the only counter it has. So this thing is an absolute monster and really difficult to prep for and really difficult to play against. So we'll see what we can do about Ash Greninja. As a matter of fact, this mon was banned. After playing through the SFL and everything, we came to the conclusion that it was too good for league format. So yeah. The next mon is CLEFABLE. Now, CLEFABLE, easily one of the best bulky mons in the league format and in the game, arguably, at least in Gen 6. Gen 7 is a little different. But CLEFABLE, what does it do? It sponges. It takes so many hits. It can recover them off really reliably. It can get up rocks. It can thunder wave things. It has a great move pool, access to Flamethrower for steel types that want to switch in, stab Moonblast. It can run Life Orb. It can run Unaware to prevent setup sweepers from wrecking through his team. It can run Magic Guard to not take hazard damage, to not be whittled away by Toxic and such. It can set up with Calm Mind or Cosmic Power. It is one scary mon to go up against and really difficult to get rid of. So that poses a threat in and of itself. Next up is the Decidueye. In my opinion, my favorite starter, and one of the better ones in my opinion. It has access to Leaf Blade and Spirit Shackle. It can trap mons, which is really important. Once it traps a mon, it has reliable recovery, and it can set up Sword Stances, it can set up Nasty Plots, and it can baton past them, which is really cool. It can set up 4 other things, pretty much, given that it traps something, that isn't really a threat to it. And yeah, for that reason, it's pretty good in my opinion. It's also a defogger to potentially get rid of hazards, which is also pretty useful. And then next up is Forretress. Dwayne the Rock Forretress Johnson. I don't actually remember why that became a joke in our league, but regardless, Forretress, it gets up hazards, it gets up spikes, it gets up rocks. It can get rid of all those hazards with Rapid Spin. It can fire off pretty strong gyro balls because it's so slow. In addition to having a mediocre attack stat, it can run Volt Switch for momentum. A really nice slow Volt Switch is really good. So that thing is also scary. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to Forretress. It's pretty one-dimensional, but it can definitely take some hits and support teams really well. Next up is MIENSHAO. Now, MIENSHAO, what to say about MIENSHAO? It's one of those lower tier, like, nukes. It's the closest thing you'll get. It's really fast. It's got a really high attack stat, in addition to access to reckless high jump kicks that are stab, which is, like, super powerful. It can run Life Orb, it can run Band, it can run Scarf. It gets access to Regenerator or Reckless, so it's a really good Scarf user to switch in on hits and then U-turn out, get Regenerator health for momentum and all that. It gets access to Fake Out if necessary too. It gets access to Poison Jab to beat a lot of the fairies that want to come in on it. So this thing is in and of itself very scary. Are you noticing a theme? And then next up is SIGILYPH. Now SIGILYPH, this Pokemon, it might not seem as intimidating as it really can be, but it typically can run Cosmic Power or Calm Mind and Stored Power. And because of Magic Guard, and it can run Life Orb without risking recoil, it gets reliable recovery and roost. It can run a Toxic Orb, Psycho Shift set to Hazard Mons, or not to Hazard, to Status Mons if it wants to, without taking any of the negative effects from it itself. So again, I don't want to let this thing set up. Next up is EXPLOUD. EXPLOUD is a total nuke. Access to, I mean, it's got a good special attack stat, 91, nothing crazy, but it's got normal stab boom burst, which is a base 140 move. So given normal's lack of resistances in general, EXPLOUD is a monster. It comes in, choice specs, modest, EXPLOUD boom burst, it just breaks through walls like crazy. It is a scary mon to switch into, especially given its coverage too. Again, it has Fire Blast, Flamethrower, I don't know, actually Flamethrower, maybe not Fire Blast. Focus Blast, and then of course a hidden power move if it wants to. So this thing gets pretty good coverage too. Its only caveat is that it's slow, but again, I don't really have switch-ins, so I'm going to need to keep momentum if he brings this. Next up is ROTOM-MOW. Now, ROTOM-MOW actually gives my team a lot of trouble. I don't really have great switch-ins to this, especially if it's running Hidden Power Fire, especially if it decides to go for Volt Switch to gain momentum, which is going to be really important in this incredibly offensively built team match. ROTOM-MOW has okay defenses, but in decent special attack, but really strong stab, Leaf Storm and Thunderbolt. And again, can run a really solid Specs or Scarf set. It can run Life Orb. It's pretty uncommon, but this thing will probably see Scarfed if I had to guess. And so the next mon is Gastrodon. Now, Gastrodon is also really good. It's a ground type, so it's electric immunity. It has Storm Drain, so it's also a water immunity. It's only weak to grass. It can run a physically defensive set. It can run a specially defensive set. It can run specially defensive and Curse to bulk up and not really care about the speed drops, which aren't really relevant to it anyways. It gets reliable recovery and recover. It gets access to a decent special and physical move pool with Scald and Earthquake. So yeah, Gastrodon is kind of a really fat Pokemon that has pretty non-negligible attack stats as well. So definitely a force to be reckoned. Next up is KECLEON. KECLEON, the master of unpredictability. It's got an incredible move pool, and with access to the ability Protean, its type changes based on what type of move it uses. So it's really difficult to predict. It requires a lot of prediction to beat it. It gets access to great priority too, in addition to some decent bulk. It gets Fake Out, Shadow Sneak, and Sucker Punch, all of which do quite a bit of damage. And based on which of those, which type it is, changing its type with that priority could have big consequences. So again, scary mon to predict, gonna have to scout a lot. That said, scouting is really difficult when you don't have sponges. So, again, difficult. The next mon is Persian. Now, Alolan Persian is really good primarily for Parting Shot. It is pretty bulky, and it has access to moves that can lower the opponent's attack. It has pretty, pitiful attack stat itself, but it gets access to Stab Foul Play, which uses the opponent's Pokemon's attack stat. So it doesn't really need to worry about that. It's got great speed, and again, Parting Shot is a great way to set up with another mon, to give another Pokemon on your team an opportunity to set up, which is really scary when he has Charizard X. So, and like I said, other mons that don't appreciate that sort of momentum, or really don't have switch-ins to that sort of momentum advantage, like EXPLOUD, even SIGILYPH, or especially GRENINJA, which can also pick up that momentum. So definitely scary and can provide really good support, in particular to his team. Next up is Articuno. Now, he hasn't really brought Articuno. It is good. kind of. It's not really that great. It can be a defogger, it can be run Scarf with Ice Beam. It has so special attack stat, in addition to a good typing, offensively at least. And okay, bulk, it all matters on rocks, and if he brings this and Zard, his team is super weak to rocks, so I don't really know if he'll actually bring it, given Zard X is probably a lot more important. And yeah, that is his team. His team is scary. His team is so scary. It brings a lot of offense, it packs a ton of punch, and it's really going to be difficult to maintain momentum against, but I think that's ultimately what this match is going to come down to, is who can maintain momentum better, who can get chip damage to set up for a late game sweepers, who can prevent the opponent's Pokemon from setting up. I think that's going to be really important. And speaking of my team, let's get into the first member. The first member that came to mind was Infernape. Now, the first time we brought around Infernape, this is pretty much the same set. Max attack, max speed, well, almost max speed. It's just enough speed to outspeed a MIENSHAO, which is all that's really relevant, and the rest goes into HP. Now, the HP puts at a Life Orb number, meaning it's optimizing for Life Orb recoil and HP. As far as the moveset goes, we've got Mach Punch, and that's primarily for Greninja, because Greninja. I really need to figure out what item Greninja has ASAP, because if it's Scarf, if it's choice locked in any way, that's going to be super crucial information. If it's Life Orb, we're screwed. If it has the ability to choose its moves more freely, it's going to be really difficult. But regardless, if he is choice locked, I have a couple traps set up with my team so that I force him to lock himself into a priority or non-priority move, and then depending on which one he does, I can kill him with a priority option or a non-priority option respectively from a Scarf Bird, which will outspeed. Unless he's Scarf Greninja, then I have the priority. So that's why Mach Punch is there primarily, or if I can bait Zard X to put itself in Mach Punch range by killing something else, that's also an option. So Mach Punch could be helpful in those sort of last-ditch scenarios. Close combat hits everything hard. It smacks everything. It does so much damage, and what it doesn't do a lot of damage to, Fire Punch does a lot too. So it's just really good coverage. It hits, it 2-hit KOs Zard X. Fire Punch, depending on the Clef set, can 2-hit or 3-hit KO it after rocks if it's not Magic Guard. Notice that there's a lot of unpredictability here. Fire Punch is really good for Decidueye and for Retris. Mach Punch even does quite a bit to MIENSHAO. But yeah, just in general, this Mon covers a lot. And I do remember, I was running Gunk Shot before for CLEFABLE, which is really scary for him probably. But this time I decided not to run it because, one, I don't like accurate or inaccurate moves in general. What I like about Rock Slide is that it allows me to hit Zard X, or Charizard in general. And why is this relevant? I looked back at our match, and after going for close combat on something, he actually brought in his Charizard and stayed in normal form so that he could roost up on my close combats, which were doing Life Orb recoil to me and not KOing. Probably. It was a roll. But he could think that he could roost up on my Infernape's close combats, and he might anticipate a potential Thunder Punch in anticipating my prediction of that. And Thunder Punch, if I go for it, if he Mega Evolves, is going to do like close to 15%, but would easily KO if he didn't Mega Evolve. But I don't think he's going to go back and look into that. I feel like he's going to have the same sort of mentality and not really anticipate something like Rock Slide, which does at least 56, I think, percent to a Mega Zard X, and it definitely KOs the regular Zard. That said, it needs to hit. It's 90% accurate. It's still better than Gunk Shot, but again, I don't like inaccurate moves. So that's why that's there. And just in general, Infernape can put in a ton of work. A ton of work. And I don't really mind that its HP is getting dwindled, or yeah, it's just slowly losing HP because of Life Orb, because I'm not anticipating taking any priority attacks with it. Maybe a Fake Out, but definitely not Water Shurikens from Greninja. Definitely not that. So yeah, Infernape, hopefully we can catch the Zard X with it, but who knows. The next mon we've got is Gengar. Yes, Scarf Gengar. These are, oh, by the way, this is in order of me determining it would be a good fit for the team. Gengar, Scarf is important because it can outspeed Zard at +1. It can go for a last-ditch effort Destiny Bond if necessary. It can do over 50%, at least 50% with Sludge Wave. So if it, goes for Dragon Dance after rocks, it's still in range of Sludge Wave, which is really important. Shadow Ball is there to hit everything that Sludge Wave doesn't hit very hard, and then Dazzling Gleam is for the occasion, maybe like a coverage for, depending on which Pokemon are remaining for a sweep late game, especially if it's like, what's it called, Persian, or depending on KECLEON going for Sucker Punch and maybe not KOing. It could be MIENSHAO, etc. Maybe, that's pretty much it, maybe even GRENINJA. But Sludge Wave in general is going to be what I click, and Destiny Bond is the last-ditch effort. It has just enough speed to outspeed Scarf MIENSHAO. And yeah, again, this is one of my things to help counter Scarf or Greninja in general, and again Zard, which is so scary. On that note, let's move to the next one, which is OMASTAR. Now OMASTAR. I really like OMASTAR. I went through a lot of phases of OMASTAR this season. At first it was like, oh, like OMASTAR's not like that great, I can't really use it. Oh wait, OMASTAR does like really well against his team after his Shell Smash. I'm gonna go with Focus Sash and like Shell Smash up and see what we can do. And then after that it was like, oh wait, OMASTAR is actually a great lead. And so of recent I've been using it as a lead, but I think it really works in this case. Very much like we did last time. Getting Stealth Rock up is huge against him. It breaks sashes, and more importantly, it does so much damage to Zard, and it builds up little chip damage that is essential for late game sweeps. And same goes for Toxic Spikes. The spikes, Toxic Spikes themselves will slowly chip away at his team every single time they bring something in. Every single time he tries to tank some sort of hit, it'll slowly whittle away. If we get up one layer and he brings a really offensive team, that's cool. If he brings a relatively bulkier team, I mean, obviously he's a very offensive team overall, but a relatively bulky offensive team, 2 layers of Toxic Spikes would be really helpful, but not the end of the world. As far as attacks go, I've got Ice Beam to hit Decidueye primarily, which might want to come in on this. It's also to hit Gastrodon, and ROTOM-MOW, because my speed, yes, my speed, at +2, basically if my weak armor activates, I outspeed Charizard X. So my defense allows me to take a +1 Earthquake from Megazard X, and I can also determine whether or not he is max attack based on whether or not I like have to activate my Focus Sash or not. And once I take that hit, I outspeed him and do a ton of damage with Ancient Power. And this also means I could potentially switch this in on a Dragon Claw or a Flare Blitz, which won't do as much as an Earthquake, and especially if it's a Flare Blitz, and I'll get my weak armor boost, so I'll be double speed and threaten it out with an Ancient Power, which is like really cool. So this thing could be a really good Zard counter as well. And Ancient Power in general, it's pretty good against most of his team. So I can go for that, and there is a 10% chance I can get the boost. I'm not going to rely on the boost unless I absolutely have to win, but that does give me a 10% chance each time I use Ancient Power, or he puts me in a position where it's advantageous to use Ancient Power to potentially have an easier time winning. So that's always there. Ancient Power, by the way, instead of using Earth Power, which I've been using almost all season, because Ancient Power is base 60, I thought it was weaker, and I just kind of overlooked it. And most places, or most times, I've been using Earth Power to hit Steel types, but there aren't any relevant Steel types to hit this time around. So Ancient Power, because it's base 60, because of Stab, is the same base power, actually, as Earth Power, and because of that 10% chance, to get those stat boosts, it's definitely better, and because it doesn't have the chance to be, or to like not hit stuff with Levitate or Flying type. So definitely Ancient Power over Earth Power. And with that, let's move on to the next member of the team. We've got Mega Scizor. Now, Mega Scizor running a super bulky set. Lots of Spadef, lots of Spadef. This is one of my few switch-in mons to potentially a Specs or Scarf Greninja. It also is a potential switch into Specs EXPLOUD Boom Burst, which is like crazy. This could also help out with ROTOM-MOW. It could help out with a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to. I can force SIGILYPH to need to roost against me and then U-turn out on that. Yeah, Bullet Punch does a lot to most things, especially after an SD, which might be relevant late game, especially if Greninja can't KO me and it doesn't 2-hit KO me with a Water Shuriken. Especially if I don't let it get Battle Bond. U-turn is so important for momentum, and Roost will be really important for staying healthy so that I have answers to Greninja. And more importantly, I can't let him lock himself, or I force him to not lock himself into Water Shuriken as long as Mega Scizor is alive and close to full health, because then I can essentially switch in, take one, or even sack something, take one, and then U-turn out and KO it. So that's really important. Mega Scizor could play a really important defensive role in this matchup. Okay, next up is Xurkitree. Now, Xurkitree, Scarf, I forget exactly what it's meant to outscarf. I think Modest ROTOM-MOW. I think that's the only relevant thing in this speech here. To outspeed Modest Scarf ROTOM-MOW, essentially, because it is Scarf. Thunderbolt does a lot on his team. Volt Switch is great for getting some solid chip damage and momentum. Dazzling Gleam is for potential sweep late game if I need the right coverage move. And he didn't bring Gastrodon last time, which is really surprising because that enabled me to Volt Switch really freely around his team. However, I do think he is going to bring it this time around, so I did want to bring Energy Ball just in case. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. I have Spadef specifically because investing all of my leftover EVs into Spadef as opposed to HP will be slightly more effective at taking potential Water Shurikens, which could be a really big game changer. So I can definitely take one Water Shuriken from Specs Greninja after Battle Bond and KO it back from full life. I believe it has like 79 to like 85% or something like that. So that might be relevant. We'll see. And then the last member of the team is Tapu Fini. Now, Tapu Fini, I need this thing. It's so defensive, and why I need it is because of Zardex. It forces me bringing Tapu Fini means one, I either wall Zardex or he potentially reveals and kind of sacrifices a move for something like Thunder Punch, which it can run and which hits Tapu Fini really hard. And it's not like we hit it super hard back with Moonblast. I think we do like 35 to 40-ish%. But we can Calm Mind up on a lot of things, like Clefable, especially after taunting them. We prevent Rocks Up, we kind of wall Forretress, and we can defog away hazards. Obviously, because of our lead, or potentially lead, OMASTAR, I don't want to defog our own hazards away, but it might be necessary at some point. Obviously, it's very situational. And this thing in general takes the few physical hitters he could bring, whether it's Zardex, unless it's running Thunder Punch, but then it's not running Dragon Dance, or then it can only run like one of Dragon Dance, Roost, Dragon Claw, and Flare Blitz, which means other things potentially beat it. So that's relevant. This thing can take anything from Greninja except for a Gunk Shot, but if he is Gunk Shot, then I know he's not Battle Bond, which means a lot of my other Mons, especially my Scarf Mons, are safer, and especially my Scizor too. Actually, no, he might, well, it depends. It depends. But yeah, this thing is also helpful for MIENSHAO, even if MIENSHAO is running Poison Jab, and we set up alongside SIGILYPH. After a Calm Mind, we take on some of the special attackers too, even, which is really cool. We beat Gastrodon 1v1 because we taunt it to prevent it from recovering and hit it hard with Moonblast, or we Calm Mind up on it too. So yeah, Tapu Fini is pretty essential to the team as well to sponge some potential physical attacks and to weaken his walls and to prevent his walls from setting up or getting hazards up. So yeah, but as you can probably tell, there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot I can't really read just yet. There's a lot that he could bring to counter just about every bit of my team, but he can't do all of it at once, so I need to figure it out. I need to do a lot of scouting. I need to really run my calcs well. I need to really be thinking on point if I want to figure out exactly what he's bringing as soon as I possibly can and then play accordingly. And the pressure is real. Sam is a great battler. I know from watching or talking with him about our match a couple weeks ago that he wasn't as 100% serious as I was with the last one. And that's partially why I won it, because he pretty much sacked his Charizard X to get a Blast Burn off, and that Mon puts in so much work against my team. So I do think this match is definitely going to be a whole nother monster. I am not really comfortable in the slightest knowing that I beat him a couple weeks ago, because I feel like he's going to come with a different mindset and definitely a bit of a different team. So it's scary. I hope you guys are cheering for me. I hope you guys are excited for the battle when it does come out. And yeah, that's all I've got for now. I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna see what I can do. I'm gonna try to win, and more importantly, I'm gonna try and play as best as I can. So, on that note, I'll see you guys in the battle, but until then, this has been Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.